What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P here with another episode of Steelers Touchdown Under. We are talking the offense. We are talking Steelers depth chart, starting 53 offensive players if they had to play a game tomorrow. Why are we doing this? It's the same as in the defensive show. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch that after this. It'll link automatically after this episode finishes. But we're looking at this to see, where do the Steelers still need to improve? Who do they still possibly need to bring in? Where's the depth? What's happening? We're going to talk about all that and more on this episode of Steelers Touchdown Under. All right, so really keen to talk about these offensive guys. Obviously on the defense, we talk 28 players, so we're going to look at 25 blokes on the Steelers offense of the 53, and we're going to go all the way up, and here we go. We've got that in front of us. Really important that I make sure that's right before I get going, because it's very hard to fix it in the platform I'm using if it is not. All right, so when we look at the Steelers 53, we're going to talk about this in groups of quarterback, running back, or halfback. That's two groups. Fullback, tight end, we're talking about them together. Wide receiver, interior offensive lineman, and tackles. Right, now let's go into it. Right now, as I record this show to you, and this could change in the next 48 hours, depending on when this show comes out. Well, I'm recording this on my Sunday evening, early hours of your Sunday morning. Aaron Rodgers is not a Pittsburgh Steeler. This is the quarterback room right now. If Aaron Rodgers chooses not to become a Steeler, if he chooses to stay in the dark retreat room, and it's getting darker in this room right now, so I'm going to start to get really glowy, then it is what it is, right? There's other players who could become available. I don't think with Jackson Dart and Russell Wilson at the Giants that Winston stays there. I don't think he does. I've heard Derek Carr floated around. I've heard Wentz floated around. Absolutely do not bring in Carson Wentz. But there's guys that could become available even if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come. So I don't think Skylar Thompson is the third quarterback for the Steelers in 2025. I'm just saying that. Keep him on the practice squad would be great, but I don't think he's the third quarterback on this roster. Pure, simple, done. Do I think Mason Rudolph can play all the games? Probably not. Probably not. But does he have to? I don't think so. Will Howard, I think, would hopefully want to prove himself then. I think this is a problem that a lot of people are getting enamored by right now. And I know that's a very odd thing to say, don't worry about one of the most important position in football. But I just kind of think this is going to figure itself out. And we've seen so much change here since Big Ben went. Let's just go with the flow. Then we're going to talk about Jaylen Warren. Now, Jaylen Warren is going to be the starting running back to start the season for the Steelers. But the tandem that he and Johnson are going to provide, I actually think has, I'm not going to say on day one, week one of the season, it is better than last year with Harris and Warren, but I think it has a lot more upside and a lot more potential to be a much more beneficial thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers in this upcoming season. Gainwell is a smaller back, but a lot more agile, change of pace. He's going to be very helpful for them as well. And then it was very hard to pick a fourth guy. People will talk about Shampling and Jonathan Ward. They're a bit older. I actually went with Evan Hull out of Northwestern. He was a good college running back. I was really happy when the Steelers picked him up last year. I'd actually had him and mocked him the year before on round 7 for the Steelers on multiple drafts. So I was really happy the Steelers got him. And I think he's someone that you'd really prove himself through the preseason, particularly in the Steelers system, hopefully. So I put him there on the roster right now. But again, I could still see them finding someone else in this fourth spot. I do not think that's set. Same goes for fullback. We saw the tight end fullback. Well, originally when he was brought in as a UDFA, he was brought in as a tight end, but then they've switched him to fullback. He can do both. We've heard about him. Steelers doing this podcast did a really good take on him when they did their draft review show. I've locked Connor Hayward in for now because I don't think there's a big enough name to come in and challenge him. But I still wouldn't be surprised if he somehow doesn't have that spot. We'll see. The tight ends is Freiermuth, Washington, and Dylan Parham. Now, I like the size of Parham. I would prefer him to be a practice squad guy, or depending if they find a roster spot somewhere else, that's the case. I still think the Steelers are short a much more receiver-capable tight end, to be honest. I think that's really important for them. That's one of the key things to me that I'd like to see them be elevated for and really improve as the season goes on. But I do think they will. I think they'll wait to see who's cut and who becomes available. On the wide receiver side, this was hard to not include a guy like Ben Skowronek and a few other players. But right now, I've got it in there, Metcalf, Pickens, Woods. Now, I'm not saying Woods. I got caught up on this last year, as prefaced it, and someone still like sat there in the comments at the start of the first minute video and had a crack. I'm not saying Woods is the third wide receiver on this roster. I'm saying he's the slot guy, right? And if I had to back up 1 and 2, this is how I'm doing it right now. I think we don't know what we don't know about Roman Wilson. Calvin Austin can easily be the third or fourth wide receiver. I find it hard that with my challenge with the guys on this right now is that only really Austin has the special teams value. I'm not sure that Scotty Miller is going to do what Skowronek does, sorry, and that's a problem. I actually think that it's a it's a Woods or Scotty Miller situation potentially. But as the roster stands today on the 4th of May, as I'm doing this show, this is if I'm picking 6 wide receivers and then 25 offensive players, this is what I'm going with. That's just me, right? Based on what I've got on the list in front of me. And the Steelers really do like what Scotty Miller's brought. They talked about that a lot in the season, talked about it a lot in the preseason last year. So that's how I think they're going to go. Then you look at the offensive line. We're going to start on the interior. So, the guards and the centers. Now, this is really hard because, as you see, I don't have a tackle there. And I thought about Calvin Anderson and Dylan Cook. I don't really like either option. I think you need a specialist center on this, and I think Ryan McCollum proved himself last year enough. I was open to them going and getting a top guard in the first couple of rounds in this year's draft because I think they need to find someone to replace Isaac Seumalo next year. Shame you let Daniels go as well, like in the end. I do think that's just their 3 starters. I think you need a guy like Spencer Anderson and his tackle versatility as well, I think would be very valuable. And likewise, if I was picking the start today because of his capability in doing that, I'm also keeping Doug Nestor as a guard out of West Virginia with Zach Frazier. However, if you ask me practically, I think Nestor is still a practice squad guy to start the season unless there's an injury at guard, right? Which is a good segue into the tackles, because I do think the Steelers have a big gap at tackle. If the Steelers had a tackle injury tomorrow, they have a big problem, and the Steelers are going to have to find some way to do some business between a cut, a trade, find someone else other than Cook and Anderson, but they're not the answer. I'm actually really worried about this when I look at when we did the defense and we talked about cornerback being a need and potentially inside linebacker. Cornerback is almost equal need to tackle. This has got to be, they've got to find another tackle that could start 5 to 10 games this year. Because if they can't find that before the season, there's no point going and getting Aaron Rodgers. They've got to fix this tackle position. They've just got to. This is the biggest risk of this roster right now for 2025. More than quarterback. And I say that, and it's going to sound crazy when I've said that, because you can still play games with Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, and whoever else you bring in. If you don't have a tackle, as I said, there is no point bringing Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers is going to be on the floor. So this is the number 1 priority. Now, we will look in the coming days, week, at potential tackle options. If you've got someone, comment now. Happy to look in the guys that you want to comment on. But this has got to be the focus for Omar Khan, Mike Tomlin, and particularly Andy frickin' Weidel, because Andy Weidel is the trench guy. He and Omar have got to figure this out. Very, very important, especially for Pat Meyer as well, to get someone in to learn the Steelers system. Because even still, we haven't seen Fa'atanu play. I think ultimately he'll be a guard, so that might fix your problem next year if you can draft the top tackle. And we haven't seen consistent since came into league out of Broderick Jones' performance. And he's moving after basically playing 2 years at right tackle, moving to the left. So the tackle is probably the biggest question mark on this Steelers roster right now. But do you agree with me? Let me know in the comments. And I'm happy to hear that feedback, want to hear that feedback, and then we can look at possible solutions, as I say, in the days and weeks ahead. But I'm Matty P. As always, go Steelers.